Meet Daniel. 6 months ago, he believed something that millions of people believe every single day. I can't improve my English because I have no one to practice with. No English-speaking friends, no expensive tutor, no language school, just a small bedroom, an old smartphone, and a dream that seemed far away. Every morning, Daniel watched other people speak English with confidence. He admired them, but deep inside he kept asking himself, what do they have that I don't? The answer surprised him. They didn't have more talent. They didn't have better memories. They simply had a better system. And that changed everything. Imagine waking up every day knowing that your English is becoming stronger, even if you never leave your house. Imagine speaking confidently during a job interview, understanding movies without subtitles, or chatting with people from another country without translating every sentence in your head. That future is much closer than you think. Because the biggest myth about learning English is that you need another person to improve. You don't. In fact, many language experts agree that consistent, active practice matters far more than simply sitting in a classroom. Research in language acquisition has repeatedly shown that learners improve fastest when they actively produce the language instead of only consuming it. In other words, speaking, thinking, writing, and creating sentences help your brain build stronger language connections than passive listening alone. Daniel didn't know any of this when he started. On his first day, he stood in front of a mirror and tried to introduce himself. Hello, my name is Daniel. He stopped. He smiled awkwardly. Then he laughed. It sounded strange. His pronunciation wasn't perfect. His grammar wasn't perfect either. For a moment, he wanted to quit. But then he remembered something that changed his mindset forever. No baby waits until they can speak perfectly before saying their first word. They learn by making thousands of mistakes. So why should learning English be any different? That single thought removed the fear that had been holding him back for years. Instead of chasing perfection, Daniel decided to chase progress. Every mistake became proof that he was learning. Every awkward sentence became another step toward fluency. Every small improvement became another reason to continue. And that's exactly the mindset you need before learning any technique in this video. Because methods are powerful, but your mindset decides whether those methods actually work. Many people spend years watching English videos. They memorize hundreds of vocabulary words. They complete grammar exercises. Yet they still freeze the moment someone says, "Tell me about yourself." Why? Because knowledge and skill are not the same thing. Knowing English is different from using English. Imagine someone reading hundreds of books about swimming. They understand every technique. They know how to move their arms. They know how to breathe. But if they never enter the water, can they really swim? Of course not. Language works exactly the same way. You don't become fluent by collecting information. You become fluent by using the language every single day. That's exactly what Daniel discovered. Instead of asking, "How can I learn more English?" he started asking, "How can I use the English I already know?" That one question transformed his learning forever. Suddenly, 50 words became enough to create hundreds of different sentences. Simple grammar became real conversations. Daily routines became speaking practice. His bedroom became his classroom. His mirror became his conversation partner. His phone became his personal English coach. Everything around him became an opportunity to practice. And that's when something incredible happened. After only a few weeks, Daniel noticed that he was no longer translating every sentence from his native language. Sometimes his thoughts appeared directly in English. just for a second, then for a minute, eventually much longer. Those tiny moments were signs that his brain was beginning to think in English instead of constantly translating. That is one of the biggest milestones in becoming fluent. The good news is, you can train your brain to do the same thing. And you don't need a teacher sitting beside you. You don't need a perfect accent. You don't need expensive courses. You only need the right habits, practiced consistently. In the next part, you'll discover the first powerful daily method Daniel used to improve his English completely alone at home. It's simple enough to start today, yet effective enough to transform the way you speak, think, and understand English. Once Daniel made this habit part of his daily routine, his confidence began to grow faster than he ever imagined. Daniel's first habit looked so ordinary that most people would completely ignore it. No fancy app, no expensive course, no secret shortcut, just 10 minutes every morning. Yet this one habit became the foundation of everything that followed. The habit was called thinking in English. At first, Daniel thought it sounded impossible. Can I think in English if I don't know enough English? The answer was surprisingly simple. You don't begin with complicated thoughts. You begin with the simplest ones. The moment Daniel woke up, instead of thinking, "I need to brush my teeth," he gently trained his brain to say, "I am waking up." Feel sleepy. "I need some water." Today is going to be a good day. Simple, natural, real. Those tiny sentences might seem insignificant, but they activated something powerful inside the brain. According to cognitive scientists, the brain becomes more efficient when it retrieves information repeatedly in meaningful situations. Instead of memorizing isolated vocabulary, Daniel connected English directly to his daily life. Every object he saw became a word. Every action became a sentence. Every routine became a lesson. Soon, his bedroom wasn't just a bedroom anymore. It became an English classroom. He looked at the window. The window is open. He looked at the clock. It's 7:30. He picked up his phone. Someone sent me a message. He made his bed. I'm folding the blanket. Without realizing it, Daniel had already practiced English dozens of times before breakfast. The best part, his brain didn't feel like it was studying. It felt like it was simply living. That's the secret behind long-term learning. When learning becomes part of your lifestyle, consistency stops feeling difficult. Many people wait for the perfect time to study. Daniel stopped waiting. He turned ordinary moments into English practice. And those ordinary moments created extraordinary results. Now, here's the second method that completely changed his confidence. Speak out loud, not in your head. Out loud. This is where many learners struggle. They silently read books. They silently watch videos. They silently memorize vocabulary. Then one day, someone asks them a question in English. And suddenly, no words come out. Why? Because speaking is a physical skill. Your brain, your tongue, your lips, and your breathing must learn to work together. Just as reading about the piano won't teach your fingers to play, thinking about English won't train your mouth to speak. Daniel understood this. Every evening, he stood in front of the mirror for 15 minutes, not to admire himself, to become his own conversation partner. The first conversation sounded awkward. "Hello, Daniel. How are you today?" "I'm fine." "What did you do today?" "I worked. Then I came home. And now I'm practicing English." It felt strange. Sometimes he forgot words. Sometimes he made grammar mistakes. Sometimes he laughed at himself. But he never stopped. Because every sentence made his mouth a little faster. Every mistake made his brain a little stronger. Every day, speaking became a little more natural. Within a month, something amazing happened. Daniel noticed that he no longer panicked when speaking English. He still made mistakes, but the fear had disappeared. Confidence doesn't come from being perfect. Confidence comes from proving to yourself again and again that you can keep speaking even when you aren't perfect. Remember that fluent speakers don't know every word. They simply know how to keep the conversation moving. Now let's move to Daniel's third habit. One evening, while watching an English movie, Daniel realized something. Native speakers didn't sound like his English textbook. They contracted words. They spoke naturally. They changed their tone. They expressed emotion. That's when he discovered a technique used by actors, interpreters, and many advanced language learners. It's called shadowing. Here's how it works. Choose a short audio clip, maybe 20 or 30 seconds long. Listen carefully. Then play it again and speak at the same time as the speaker. Don't worry if you can't keep up. Don't stop. Copy the pronunciation, copy the rhythm, copy the emotion, copy the energy. The goal isn't to understand every word immediately. The goal is to train your ears and your mouth to work together. At first, Daniel sounded nothing like the speaker. His timing was off. His pronunciation wasn't clear. His confidence disappeared after every sentence. But he kept practicing, day after day, week after week. Slowly, his speech became smoother. His pronunciation improved naturally. His listening skills became sharper. Most importantly, English started to feel familiar instead of foreign. That feeling is incredibly important, because fluency isn't just about knowing English. It's about feeling comfortable using it. And Daniel was finally beginning to reach that point. But there was another habit, one that multiplied everything he had learned. A habit so simple that almost nobody takes it seriously. Yet it helped Daniel remember vocabulary faster, build sentences more naturally, and think more clearly in English. That habit changed the way he learned forever. And we'll explore it next. The habit was surprisingly simple. Keep an English journal, not a perfect journal, not a beautiful journal, just an honest one. When Daniel first heard this advice, he almost ignored it. Writing. I want to speak English, not become a writer. But after reading about successful language learners, he discovered something fascinating. Writing forces your brain to slow down. When you speak, words disappear the moment they're spoken. When you write, every sentence stays in front of you. You can see your mistakes. You can improve them. You can learn from them. So Daniel bought an inexpensive notebook. Every night before going to bed, he wrote just 5 sentences, that's it. 5 simple sentences about his day. Today I woke up at 7. I had tea and bread for breakfast. Work was busy, but I finished everything. I learned 5 new English words. Tomorrow I will practice speaking for 20 minutes. Some nights those 5 sentences became 10, then 20, eventually an entire page. At first, Daniel needed a dictionary almost every minute. It felt slow, sometimes frustrating. But instead of seeing that as failure, he realized something important. Every time he searched for a word, his brain created another connection. The next time he needed that word, it came a little faster, then faster again. And one day, without even thinking, he wrote an entire paragraph without opening a dictionary. That moment filled him with confidence, not because his English was perfect, but because he could finally express his own thoughts. That's what language is really about. Not showing how many difficult words you know, but expressing your ideas clearly. Now, here's another powerful trick Daniel discovered. He stopped trying to memorize long vocabulary lists. Instead, he learned words in context. Imagine trying to memorize the word determined. You could repeat it 50 times, or you could create a sentence. Daniel was determined to improve his English every day. Suddenly, the word has meaning. It has emotion. It has a story. Research in cognitive psychology shows that our brains remember information much better when it is connected to meaningful experiences rather than isolated facts. That's why stories are so powerful, that's why conversations are memorable, and that's why Daniel stopped collecting words and started collecting sentences. Whenever he learned a new word, he challenged himself to use it 3 different ways. If today's word was confident, he would say, I feel confident today. My sister is confident when she speaks. Practice makes you more confident. 1 word, 3 sentences. A memory that lasted much longer. Then Daniel added another rule. Whenever he forgot a word, he refused to panic. Instead of stopping the conversation in his mind, he described the word using simpler English. For example, he forgot the word umbrella. Most learners would immediately switch to their native language. Daniel didn't. He smiled and said, it's the thing you use when it rains. It perfect? No. Did people understand him? Absolutely. That single habit transformed the way he communicated, because real fluency isn't knowing every word. Real fluency is knowing how to keep communicating. Native speakers do this all the time. Have you ever forgotten someone's name? Of course. Did the conversation end? No. You simply describe the person another way. Language is flexible. And confident speakers understand that. As Daniel became more comfortable, he noticed another problem. His listening was improving. His vocabulary was growing. His pronunciation was becoming clearer. But sometimes when someone spoke quickly, he still missed important words. That's when he changed the way he watched English content. Instead of watching videos only for entertainment, he started watching them like a language detective. He chose videos about topics he genuinely enjoyed: technology, travel, cooking, sports, personal development, anything that kept his attention. The first time, he simply watched and listened. No subtitles, no pressure, just listening. The second time he turned on English subtitles. Now he could connect the sounds with the written words. The third time he paused after every important sentence and repeated it aloud, matching the speaker's rhythm, pronunciation, and emotion. By the fourth viewing, something incredible happened. Sentences that once sounded impossibly fast suddenly became clear. His ears weren't changing. His brain was adapting. That's how listening improves. Not overnight, but through repeated, focused exposure. Within a few months, Daniel noticed something he'd dreamed about for years. He was watching short English videos and understanding them without constantly translating in his head. It wasn't magic. It was the result of hundreds of small practice sessions that seemed insignificant on their own but became extraordinary when combined. That's the beauty of consistency. One day won't change your English, but one day, repeated hundreds of times, absolutely will. And yet, despite all this progress, Daniel was still making one mistake that almost every English learner makes. A mistake so common that it silently slows down improvement without people even realizing it. The moment Daniel fixed that mistake, his confidence grew faster than ever before. Let's uncover that mistake next. The mistake was simple. Daniel was trying to sound perfect instead of trying to communicate. For months, every time he wanted to say something in English, his mind would stop him. Is this grammar correct? Am I using the right tense? What if I pronounce this word incorrectly? What if I embarrass myself? By the time he finished thinking, the opportunity to speak had already disappeared. One evening, while watching an interview with a successful multilingual speaker, Daniel heard a sentence that completely changed his perspective. Communication is more important than perfection. He paused the video. He repeated that sentence 3 times. Then he wrote it in big letters on the first page of his notebook. From that day forward, he made himself one promise: I would rather speak imperfect English than perfect silence. That single promise changed everything. Instead of stopping every time he made a mistake, Daniel kept talking. If he forgot a word, he explained it differently. If he used the wrong tense, he corrected himself and continued. If he mispronounced something, he smiled, learned from it, and moved on. Something unexpected happened. The more he accepted mistakes, the fewer mistakes he actually made, because fear had stopped controlling his mind. And when fear disappeared, learning accelerated. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. Did you become an expert without wobbling? Of course not. Every fall taught you something. Every attempt improved your balance. Language works exactly the same way. Mistakes are not signs that you're failing. They're signs that your brain is building new pathways. Now Daniel had confidence. He had daily habits. He had consistency. But he still needed one final ingredient: a clear routine. Because motivation comes and goes, discipline is built through routine. So Daniel created a simple 30-minute English practice schedule that anyone could follow at home. The first 5 minutes were for thinking in English. As soon as he woke up, he described everything around him using simple sentences. The next 10 minutes were for listening and shadowing. He chose a short video, replayed it several times, and copied the speaker's pronunciation, rhythm, and emotion. Then came 10 minutes of speaking. He stood in front of the mirror or used his phone's voice recorder. He talked about his day, his dreams, his plans. Sometimes he imagined ordering food at a restaurant. Sometimes he imagined answering questions in a job interview. Sometimes he pretended he was explaining his favorite movie to a friend. Every topic became an opportunity to speak. The final 5 minutes were for writing. He summarized his day in English. He reviewed a few new words. He created fresh sentences using those words. 30 minutes, that's all, not 3 hours, not an entire weekend. Just 30 focused minutes every day. Many people underestimate what 30 minutes can do. Let's do a little math. 30 minutes a day becomes 3.5 hours every week. That's more than 15 hours every month. Nearly 180 hours every year. Imagine practicing anything for 180 focused hours. Would you improve? Without question. The secret isn't finding more time. The secret is making better use of the time you already have. After 6 months of following this routine, Daniel decided to test himself. He joined an online English conversation group. His heart was racing. His hands were slightly shaking. Old fears returned. What if they laugh at me? What if I can't understand anyone? The conversation began. Someone smiled and asked, "Hi, Daniel. Where are you from?" For a brief moment. Everything went quiet. Then Daniel remembered all those mornings speaking to himself, all those evenings shadowing videos, all those journal entries, all those mirror conversations. He took a deep breath and answered, "Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel. I'm happy to be here. I've been practicing English by myself at home, and today is my first time speaking in a group." Nobody laughed. Nobody judged him. Instead, they smiled. They encouraged him. They asked more questions. And Daniel realized something beautiful. The biggest obstacle had never been his English. It had been his fear. That day wasn't the end of his journey. It was the beginning of a new one. Months later, Daniel looked back at the person he used to be. The person who believed learning English alone was impossible. The person who waited for the perfect teacher, the perfect course, the perfect moment. That person was gone, not because life had become easier, but because he had become stronger. And now it's your turn. You don't need to wait until next Monday. You don't need to buy another course. You don't need to memorize thousands of words before you begin speaking. Start today. Think one sentence in English. Speak 1 minute in front of the mirror. Write 5 simple sentences before you sleep. Listen to one short English video and repeat what you hear. Do it again tomorrow, then the next day. And the day after that. One small step doesn't seem powerful, but hundreds of small steps can take you farther than one giant leap. Remember Daniel. He didn't become fluent because he was gifted. He became fluent because he refused to quit. If he could transform his English with nothing more than determination, consistency, and a willingness to make mistakes, so can you. The journey starts with a single sentence, and that sentence can begin today.